Hi everyone, welcome to the Eqafe Google Hangout. Tonight we will be talking about the Kryon interview, The Pace of Breath. You'll find the link in the description. And tonight we have two guests with us. One is from South Africa, Clive. Thanks for being here. You can just say hi. Oh, he might be frozen. In here we have Dan Malara from Massachusetts.
Yep. Hi.
US. So first I wanted to discuss a little bit about this Kryon interview. We had a comment on the link, this Google link, asking about Kryon. This person didn't know the Kryon in the Eqafe interviews, and obviously the Kryon is coming through Sunet in the Eqafe interview. And so basically this is a being from the interdimensional existence, and he worked directly with the creators of existence, of the human being. Many topics that are talked about in the Eqafe site is discussed, and Kryon is a being that was there the whole way with the creators, creating what is here today as a human being, our existence, our, this earth, how it is. So he's now coming through the portal and speaking on behalf of himself, what he's created within his own path, and supporting us who are listening to these interviews to become our highest potential and basically create ourselves in the best way possible. So that's basically what this interview is about. And
Kryon was also known as, he's like really famously worldwide known through a channeler called Lee somebody. But he's like written a ton of books with Kryon in it. So there's like a whole love movement as well associated with Kryon. And that's partially also why he came on Eqafe, is to kind of show the other side of the coin, and how his channelings, not everything came through effectively. And now we're learning some pretty cool stuff from Kryon.
Right, cool. So it looks like Clive actually got disconnected, so we'll just wait to see if he comes back. So Dan, why don't you just discuss a little bit about your perspective on the interview and a little summary of it.
Cool. I really like the interview, the breath pacing, because there's so many times that as Destonians we're looking at the tool of breath. Breath and self-forgiveness is like our core homies that we use with us along the way. And so looking at the pace of breath is kind of a cool dimension, because it incorporates the time part, and the timing is so different. And there's little things like sometimes when you're doing quantum stuff in the mind, you'll shift a lot. Maybe like you'll lose your keys, or you'll just have so many things on your mind, you're moving all around. And that kind of pace of living is, it's radically different from this breath pace that we're going to look at. And the way that Kryon kind of describes how that works and how it can be so supportive to be aware of that pace is really cool. I'm looking forward to opening it up. And it looks like, is Clive on? Maybe.
Yeah, so Clive looks like he's back.
Hey, Clive.
I'm sorry about that.
No problem. Do you want to just go over a little bit about the interview from your perspective and a little summary for the audience?
In the immediate experience right now, things are moving very, very, very fast inside of myself and inside my conscious mind. And it's a matter of breathing and bringing myself and slowing myself down in this moment to almost make it work. So the breathing and slowing yourself down in relation to the interview is actually very needed right now.
Cool.
Nice. So yeah, so basically this interview was more on the support side of the process that we're walking, all of us, the Destiny-I process. There's specific tools we have that we use daily within this process of looking at our minds, understanding our minds, and then correcting the misalignments within our behavior that is created through us being kind of enslaved to the mind and not directing ourselves as the mind. So, so that's a bit about the interview. Let's explain more now about an emotional experience. What does an emotional experience look like in the mind, and what causes such an experience within our lives? Like, if you guys could give an example. Dan, why don't you start?
Ooh, all right, there's so many. So like we could simply talk about how, going on this interview and the kind of nerves that are associated with being in front of a camera, in front of an audience. And, if I let myself participate in that kind of fast motion energy, it's like my body tenses up and it's uncomfortable and it's like, and it's squirmy and kind of like bouncing around the house. And so it's like applying that breathing to really get a sense of even just using breath pacing as a way to take a look at my emotions or know more clearly when I am in an emotional reaction, because I have the breath pace awareness to give like context to my crazy contextness. Because typically when I am in emotional mind energy, it's like I don't have breath awareness, or that pacing is like totally, I'm not with that. I'm just in my mind, I'm speeding and like, kind of be zooming around and I trip and I fall or something, it's like, it's just not as with actual reality. So that's kind of interesting how that kind of can spiral out of control.
Cool.
The mind.
Right. And Clive, do you have an experience that you want to share?
With emotions.
Yeah, just like an example.
I have had anxiety that comes up quite a bit due to the thoughts that run through the conscious mind so much, and becoming sort of like obsessed with certain things that are created through me with the anxiety, and I start believing these things. I start justifying them, and it goes very, 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 very fast. And walking into different situations, feeling like that, knowing how to bring myself to a slow down and to be more stable within the environment I'm about to go into or experience, then you can definitely see that complete difference in the worlds of the conscious mind and the physical world, and the time within it. So the slowing down and the breathing for me has always been important. The breath to bring me back into the physical body. Cool.
Yeah, that's definitely a supportive tool. One of the examples I had recently that I wanted to share was I've been on, my dad has a fishing boat, so we go on often. It's the summertime here. And I was on with him 2 weeks ago, and then we went again last week. 2 weeks ago, I had this thought come up while I was driving the boat, and this thought came up of the bottom of the ocean opening and a funnel starting and us getting sucked into this funnel, like vortex. And I was like, all right, if that happens, what's gonna happen to me, and like how am I gonna move through that? And but I was right now in my process, I have walked enough where now I can see the mind, and I'm not necessarily automatically going into it and generating all this fear and going, because it's easy to go out of control if you think about this thought pattern, like, I'm gonna die, it's gonna be a horrible death, like that can spiral out of control. And I was watching that, and if I kept thinking about it and kept looking at it, I saw the energy grow and the fear grow to where I was like, oh man, I want to go back, like I don't want to be on the ocean right now. But then I looked at it and I was like, no, this is not realistic. If it does happen, then I'm dead, like I'll just accept that point. You just kind of have to accept that there is a potential to, be in a car and crash. Those potentials exist, but they're rare. So it's to be realistic within the point, but not allow the thoughts and the energy to be generated, because I didn't bring that thought up when I was on the boat riding. That thought just came into my mind, and you know, I can participate in it, or I can let it go. So the next go around, so I walked a pointed forgiveness on it. I used breath, and then the next go around, I saw the same pattern come up. So this same thought pattern came up, and I was like, okay, no. So I lived a word, I created a word. Well, actually, that's going to be later on in the interview, so in this Hangout. So I'm not going to go into how I supported myself. I just wanted to share a little bit about how the mind can use experiences that we're living day to day and bring up these insane thoughts to bring us into this fear reaction, and then we submit to it and don't live our potential. We you know, shy away, and I would have gone back into the marina and gone back on land and never experienced the ocean. So
I just want to add, like, it's a completely, like, an irrational fear sometimes, and you're not really even conscious of it, but you're just like, you know, you have a resistance towards something. So it's interesting how the mind works.
Fascinating.
My experience with that, now that it's clear, is the writing. To be very honest, yeah, blogging and writing. It's always, I've had a resistance to it. I can see the potential in it, and I know that I'm able. There's this, well, there was more so before, was this block to do it. And it's a sense of the mind with thoughts telling you you don't deserve to be heard. No one wants to hear what you've got to say. Old definitions of, oh, you're too freaky, you know, you're going to freak people out, they're going to run a mile. All of these things came up. And if I see the potential now and it growing, it's easier for me to think about it. And it's easier for me to breathe my way through it, to put my ideas and sharings on paper.
Very cool. Yeah, also, I just wanted to mention that I have the question and answer tab open, so if anyone has any questions during this Hangout, you can ask, and we'll answer them. Or if it's after the fact, you can post it in the comment, and we'll go and answer them for you. Okay, so anything you want to share, Dan, on that point?
Something that was coming up when Clyde was speaking, how, like, there's a resistance to writing or even speaking, especially speaking to strangers, because I've been looking at when walking a sales career, and breaking the ice with a stranger can be one of the strangest, like, scariest moments. And it's almost like we walk around all day around so many people and we never talk to them just because of this one little icebreaker, fear, resistance, whatever you want to call it. And applying breath pace in that moment, where it's like, take a breath and it's like, it takes a long enough time where I have to shut down my mind and not go into that fear. And then as I breathe in and as I move out with that breath, go and, you know, speak. It's really, you know, you can use a breath to kind of realign and clear a fear and stay and kind of get into that physical pacing of things and start, you know, drum up a cool conversation with a stranger.
Yes. All right. So
excellent.
Yeah, cool. We've been speaking about the quantum pace of the breath, what this interview was about, by Kryon, and the quantum pace of the mind. Let's speak a little bit about what is the quantum pace of the mind. What does that look like? We described a little bit, but in more of your own words, Clyde, how do you see the quantum pace of the mind for the viewers? How can you explain that?
The best way for me to say it would be a movie or a few movies showing one on top of the other, going at a very fast speed, and you trying to work out what the hell's going on. And it's so fast that every now and again you're seeing a clip, but it's so quick that it's more a repetition of the same picture that you saw before, but they're so fast and so many of them.
Yeah.
And so that would be sort of like the quantum pace of the mind, best to my...
No, that was cool.
Yeah,
Thanks for sharing.
I didn't even see it that way. I like that a lot. So cool.
Oh, good.
Dan, how would you describe it?
I kind of just saw it, I see it like as a fragmenting process, kind of jumpy. So seeing it as kind of like transpose like layers on top of each other, that's interesting. And yeah, sometimes it is like you're feeling stressed out because you have, you know, something pulling you this way and something pulling you that way, emotions, feelings, whatever. It's like thoughts, different desires and fears. And then that can really stress you out. And that's all like, you know, they're all kind of happening at the same time. And it's, and you're cycling around, like experiencing these different things as you focus on them. And that's all just like really quantum mind pacey.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. One thing that is coming up for me was an example. I was in the shower and I was just, you know, obviously taking a shower, and what came up in my mind was a song, and it was like, I was looking at it and I couldn't believe how, like, the sound of it, the words, the beat, the rhythm of it was all imprinted into my mind. Like, I could sing it verbatim of what, and this was something I had listened to probably days ago. It just popped in my head. And so the mind is, and this thought came very quick. I just happened to notice it. And if you sit and you look at your mind and you observe your thoughts, it's actually something that we never do. It seems like foreign to us. But this is a lot of what the destiny process is about, understanding your mind and your thoughts. And the thoughts are just constant, like moving through. So you're constantly, so what the destiny process is supporting us with is recognizing those thoughts, not participating in them, because like I described before, if you participate in those thoughts, it generates energy. So yeah, let's speak a little bit about what the mind is. Like, how does it work where an emotion is created from a thought? Like, what is that process? Clive, can you speak on that a little bit?
The first of all, having the thought on the experience, perhaps, that you're having. First of all, then you would participate in that thought. You would actually give it time. You would have a look at it nicely, and then there's always a bubbling of emotion that comes up with it, an energy that forms with it that comes, and this then goes into beyond the thought, so it's more than the thought, and you start believing that, and from there the emotion then draws in certain characters which you have ready always to become that and justify it for you.
Right.
Nice.
And then,
Yeah, Dan, do you want to expand on that a little bit or share anything?
Yeah, like basically, like, yeah, just what Clive said. The mind it's got all these different little characters that are being activated, and recently, and this is a different Eqafe interview, I think, with the reptilians, but part of how this mind is making life seem so intense at times is that when you do have a thought that pulls you into a direction that was maybe like not well considered, maybe it was like an emotional thing, and it pulls you kind of down a pathway with your physical body that your being didn't really want to go down, and there's like a friction that goes on there, and that makes it really intense. The mind, it's a really intricate system. It's incredibly fascinating how complex it is, and I've never been a part of any other group that's decoded and, you know, unwinded and figured out how the mind is functioning, really, other than destiny. So it's really cool to be listening to these Eqafe interviews and walking alongside of the beings that come through to support us to understand how this is all working so that we can practically live corrective application.
Right. So yeah, I mean, the mind was created as a machine in a way. Like, it's a closed system that operates in specific ways, like how our computer operates. There's specific mechanisms and like codes that exist, and when a code is activated, like a thought, like you participate in a thought, the energy will be generated through that thought, and then you'll become the energy. So say you have a thought, like I have a thought that Dan did something that was not. So I go, Dan, come on now, stop being a jerk. And then he gets offended, and then it just can spiral out of control. And that was just based on some kind of thought or a picture I had of Dan being not appropriate. So
yeah, like I was not doing anything inappropriate. She just thought that it was, or whatever. I don't even know what you're talking about, but
exactly. What are you talking about? And you know, that's like the way human beings act with each other. And obviously, this has created quite a lot of consequences in this world. So, with Eqafe and with these interviews, with the desten-i-process, we are walking a process of understanding how this mind system works, because it is complex, like Dan said, and we're finding ways within our own living to transform these behaviors and characters that we go into to something that is supportive for us. And let's talk about the pace of breath, the quantum pace of breath, and how that relates to beingness, substance, and the physical existence. Clive, why don't you start with that?
The experience of using the breath and bringing yourself into the physical body with the breath.
Yeah.
If I can share a technique that is necessary, you use this technique to do certain art techniques. Like, for example, stippling is just little dots, creating the picture with little dots. And that can be chaos, especially in a chaotic mind like mine. And I've got to really breathe myself into that moment of every little dot and make every little dot specific. So when doing an art piece like that, one needs to slow down completely into the physical so that you can put it onto canvas. Is that?
Yeah, that's a cool way of explaining it.
Like the fabric of physical existence, and using breath as kind of like the stylus that you paint with. Something like that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. The breath can take you into a softness that you would need for certain art techniques. And you can also breathe yourself to the opposite, slightly harder, more masculine feelings in different ways of breathing. So,
right.
But bringing the softness to it, you breathe yourself into that softness.
Mm.
Yeah.
Cool.
And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of intricate relationships even within the breath as well. Like kind of like what Clive was just saying. You can use different pacings, but not just different pace of breath. Like like some of the Eastern like martial arts, they have like a fire breath, where it's like a and different kinds of, and like Destonians have been walking for a while as a support tool, as a 4-count breath to kind of have it rounded, keep it And what I was just looking at is actually that different parts of the breath, actually there's little fears there, almost like the beginning, like the in-breath is kind of like the start and the beginning of the whole day. And then the end of the breath is like the end of the day, or the end of your life even in some regard. And it's like the end of a. So sometimes you can find like shallow breathing patterns or breathing patterns like in anxiety and stuff where, the mind is affecting your breathing and taking it away from that natural breath pace. That's a little bit, intricate. I get, it's hard to see that all the time or define it even. But it is cool to play around with the breath because there's a lot to go and open up there.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that. So the way I see the pace of breath and how it relates to the physical existence, the substance, Kryon actually explained this a little bit in the interview, basically saying it's our physical, we have a being within us which is connected or part of this life force that exists within everything. So everything has a life within it that is equal. And within that life, its substance, it's what it's made out of, is the same as what is making this physical reality. So the mind pace, which is the quantum high, the emotional experiences and what your mind goes through, the speed of thoughts and things like that, that's quantum pace of the mind. The quantum pace of the breath is more a slow, gentle, like a breath, up, in and out, slow and steady, constant. And what he explained to kind of convey this point is like, when you're going about your day and say you're at work and things are flying at you, you're moving through projects and things like that, conversations, phone calls, emails, all the things we do during the day. And then you have to go and you get a sandwich, for instance, and you have to wait in line. And within that, like how that experience, how that kind of, you go into like kind of like a, oh my God, like I can't sit still. I can't, be in this line. I gotta look at my phone. I gotta read something. And so it's like that point, like how the existence is experiencing themselves is the pace of breath, is the up and down, in and out slowness of the breath. So
Stable.
Yeah, the stability of breath. So that is really our true nature. That's who we are within this. I mean, if we're aligned with the physical beingness, this is how we would be moving as breath, in and out, slow, and it brings you here when you're present within your breath.
Can I add?
Yeah.
There's another part in the interview too where he talks about relative to that quantum mind pacing. When you go into the breath pace, it can almost feel claustrophobic, or like really like it's like it's so much slower, almost like molasses, that it's almost like you don't have the time, patience. It just feels uncomfortable, like you're suffocating. So there is definitely, in that regard, there's a resistance to moving into that kind of physical slow breath pace where you're kind of more present all the time, and not so busy up in here. But we're still walking this mind process too, and I spend most of my day still in my mind, getting there kind of thing.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a process that we have been walking for years now, and this is why we're sharing about it, because it's something that is very supportive. And what we're doing within this process is getting ourselves to be breath aware, to be here and be able to direct reality, instead of following our minds and following those insane, crazy thoughts that come up that aren't realistic. Bringing ourselves back to breath and aligning to this physical existence, seeing reality for what it is, and then through that being able to move into a way that is supportive for life, best for all, self-responsible, all these points. So let's just share a little bit about the tools that have supported us to be more aligned with our breath, and maybe share an experience within yourself where you've been in a pattern and it's how you walk these tools have supported you to be more in your breath, like that little process. Clyde, why don't you share, please?
Sure. The different tools of breathing are there are quite a few of them. The one to stabilize, there's to bring you into the physical body, to do some dipping where you actually bring yourself out of the mind and into the body. You breathe yourself within the locale that you want it to be. When you're doing your physical assessments, where am I now? What's going on? And you dip into your body to find out. Maybe there's a pain. You would consciously breathe yourself to that part of your body. You would breathe yourself into the information as you become one and equal with it. All of that gets done by the breath. Vitally important for most tools. The ability to slow down when speaking also takes a certain breath to do. Slowing down before you enter a new environment, always breathing yourself into stability. So the one and most important tool ever, which covers many different tools as a tool for them, is your breath in various ways. The experience as well, to working on what Gabriella spoke about, the life force is that when one becomes aware of the abundance of the life force, that it is all around you, that then perhaps can take your breathing into a whole new tool, where you are breathing in for the life force within your body. You can breathe it in every breath you take. You breathe in the life force. So one to stabilize, one to bring in life force, more stability, because your body goes into a little bit of a frenzy with no life force, you know, or a lack of, and you have the choice to breathe that in. So you can choose good air, life force.
Cool.
Awesome. Very cool. So Dan, do you want to share anything?
Yeah, in relation to that point, yeah, like, and speaking to how the breath can be used in different ways, there are sometimes where like our egos have clashed, and so it's like sometimes we're like throwing daggers at each other, and those things hurt, you know, but they hurt specifically kind of like in my solar plexus gut region. And it's like my reaction is to start, you know, attack back and keep the fighting, you know. And that's, you know, this either they end or they don't. But the point is that what I found is that I can use breath to soften the blows of the daggers, kind of. So that no matter what's being said about me by even whom, it doesn't matter. Like, if I'm in a position where I'm being offended or, you know, being ridiculed or any kind of thing of this nature, I have a choice where I can use my breath to soften the blow of that initial reaction and kind of guide myself into a direction where I don't go down that mind pattern and, you know, the same thought construct that was kind of like laid out for me to go down. But it's only as powerful as I believe and participate in. So rather choose the breath and walk a physical process that looks best.
Cool. Very cool. The way I've seen it and have walked it is similar to what Dan said. I mean, we have been living together for a couple of years now, and we have been walking this process together. So we have definitely seen each other's minds and the worst of ourselves, really.
Yeah.
So we've been through quite some stuff. And though through that, we each have seen how each other has progressed and how much more stable we are today than we were a year ago, even or a couple months ago. So, you know, these tools like the self-forgiveness as well, speaking it aloud. I mean, you start with the writing and then you can move it into speaking forgiveness aloud, has really supported with seeing like the mind pattern and then understanding it and then giving yourself some kind of corrective application to then in the moment when it comes again, the real-time moment, you use your breath and you realize the points within yourself because you've written them out. And now you just are practicing the correction.
That reminds me of one of the recent Anu interviews on Eqafe too, talking about living self-forgiveness, recommended.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many interviews now on Eqafe that is covering all these topics in depth, so many specific little topics. So if you are interested in any of this, you can search on Eqafe. If you can't afford it, there's also ways to get it through gifts. You can email the website. So there's free interviews as well. So yeah, definitely check it out. We do have some questions here that I want to go through before we end. I'll just read them. This is from Marzana. Hi guys, thanks for the discussion. I did not hear you from the beginning, but I can say that if I'm in the quantum mind experience, I do not see everything in my physical surrounding. My eyes do not see really what is around me. Any thoughts on this?
Totally agree. That can happen. Very much. You know, you just kind of have blinders on. Go ahead, Clive.
Yeah, totally. Totally. And you can get beyond emotion that you even forget what you've said.
Or you could be so frustrated looking for your cell phone that you look right at it and don't even see it.
And you don't even see it. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, a lot of what happens between us is that we're miscommunicating. Like he's talking about one thing, I'm talking about another, and we end up arguing about it because we're seeing it completely different and we're not even seeing it on the same level or on the same page.
We're not talking about the same thing.
We're not even talking about the same thing, so it's just like insane.
So it takes a while to kind of redefine what we're really talking about and slow down. And the breath pace helps a lot. And like also living this principle of like, you know, listening, listen first and hear her side, and then I can share my side as well.
Yeah, so it is a process. I mean, in the beginning, it's you know, full on the mind, and then as you walk your own mind, as you start to write about it and understand these patterns that are playing out, you become more, you become your own authority more, and you understand yourself more, and then through that understanding, you are able to move yourself a little bit in reality, and then a little bit more, and then it accumulates to one day, a point you've completely moved through and you can't believe that you did it. It's like, it's now that point is done, like a fear of the ocean, for instance. So yeah, I mean, this is, it's a slow process in the way of, you know, it's like a breath, and it's like grass growing. I mean, it takes time, but as you walk and as you commit to it, you do see results, and you see how you can direct yourself in reality. So thanks for the question, Marzana. She also shares, I'm not in the destiny process, but I use self-forgiveness tools and breathing.
You are.
Awesome.
Good.
Okay, so we have a question from Destiny Universe. If we never designed time, how would we have moved? If there was no night or day, how would we have moved? These are questions that support in taking self back to here. As when we die, we will not exist in time or days and nights.
That's deep.
You guys want to take a crack at it? So what would exist if there was no time? So does nature time frames?
Yeah, gosh, take away from beginnings and ends. It'll take away from process, one step at a time, one breath at a time. Yeah, I think it would be.
Yeah, you're kind of moving here instead of being in a time frame of out there, like in the future, in the past. You kind of have to be here and move moment to moment.
In linear time, yeah.
Right. All right, cool. Thanks, Destiny Universe, for that question. Okay, let's wrap it up. And do you guys have any closing comments, thoughts, feedback?
I think the thing to say at the end here is the interview itself by Kryon was almost like a confirmation to me that we are experiencing the right things. We are moving towards the right things within ourselves, and Eqafe is assisting and supporting us in every way they can with our process, and just having process available to us is through Eqafe and the Destiny group. Really worthwhile while starting and having a look at, because the benefits are in abundance. No,
Right.
It's like a gem. It's like a box of jewels, never ending.
I thought you said gym, like a working out.
Right. No.
Well, in a way, you do have to do a lot of work to work through these layers of the mind, to breath. And I guess any closing remarks for me is just this interview didn't talk about self-forgiveness, but that's really cool and supportive for helping to break down a quantum mind layer and help get you into a breathing pace. But even if you don't feel comfortable or don't believe that you can, or whatever resistance is towards self-forgiveness you may have wherever you're at in your process, the breathing is so simple and easy. Just take deep breaths, and it's a real quick, easy way to realign yourself to kind of the pace of physical reality. Totally supportive, especially if there's some kind of mind wonkiness going on that's throwing you off your stability.
Cool. Well, my closing remarks are just, if you have any more questions, you can place them on the comments in this interview link. I also will place on the description in the YouTube some videos explaining about what Eqafe is more, and
Happy 4th.
yeah, it's 4th of July here, so that wasn't a gun. It's like a firework. And I think that's it. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Kai, for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And Dan, thank you
You're welcome.
for participating.
It's been fun. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, for viewing, and we'll see you next time.
Cool.
Goodbye.
Cheers. Ciao.